Ready with me to get fired from my job that I literally just started. Since the age of 15, I've had several jobs and I've never been fired, so I find this funny. Yesterday, at the end of my shift, my manager was like, "Hey, I need to talk to you." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're giving me so much anxiety." And then she pulls me far away from all of my coworkers, and I was like, "Okay, now you're really giving me anxiety. Am I getting fired?" Like, I was laughing because I was like, "There's no way." She pulled me aside to tell me that my face looked so miserable at work that she didn't think I was a good fit for the job. I didn't know what to say. I was just like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm not miserable. Like, I have nothing against this job." I told her I knew I had a resting bitch face, but I didn't realize I looked that awful at work. I subconsciously have to remember to raise my eyebrows and make my face look pleasant and welcoming, because if not, I look like the meanest human being alive and I look like I have a raging attitude, when in actuality, my face is just chillin'. For example, this is what I look like. Miserable, awful. Anyway, I guess we'll see if I get fired today for having a ugly face at work. It was just a minimum wage job, waiter job. I honestly don't really care if they fire me, like, it's not a big deal.
Story time about when I was best friends with a pathological liar. Before we became best friends, I knew of her. A lot of my friends were friends with her, and she was known in the community. She didn't have the best reputation, but I just thought maybe she needed a good friend, and she was new to Canada, so I started getting closer to her. I started to notice that she would lie about little things. Like, she'll be like, "Oh, I saw so-and-so yesterday," and then I'd ask that person, or that person would talk to me like, "Oh, I haven't seen her in months." And I'd be confused, but I'd never ask her about it. More and more of these little lies used to happen, and I would catch them, but I just wouldn't ask her about it. Then we started going out a lot, and she would tell me, "Oh, my credit card isn't working. Can you cover me and I'll just ET you?" And usually if any of my friends say that, I'll say, "Of course, yeah." So I would pay for her. And in Arab culture, that's very normal. Like, you cover your friends, whatever, and it's not a big deal. And honestly, I wasn't really stressed about her paying me back. But then this became an everyday thing. She's like, "Oh, my credit card's still not working. As soon as it works, like, I'm gonna send you all the money." And this started accumulating. And at the time, I didn't even have a job, so it started to add up. One day I had to pay something for school, and I was like, "Look, can you send the money or get your parents to send the money?" Because she got allowance every week. And she was like, yeah, they're gonna send it to you right now." And then I'd be like, nothing came through. She's like, "Oh no, they sent it." I'm like, "Okay, maybe I can contact like your sibling and call them and see why it didn't work." And she's like, no, don't do that. And she was like, "Okay, let's go out and I'll bring you cash." And I was like, "Cool." So we went out, and then I was like, "Oh, can you just give me the money? Because I need to send it to the school, whatever." And she was like, yeah. And then she goes into her purse, and she's like, "Oh no, I brought the wrong purse." Coincidences kept happening, and it kind of got a bit alarming. And then a friend of mine, she was traveling and she came back. She's like, "Oh, I noticed you're closer with so-and-so. Please tell me you didn't give her any money." The second she said that, I was like, oh no. She's like, she's literally known in many different countries, because we all know like people from different countries, that you can never give her money. I was so annoyed at my friend for not telling me earlier, and I started distancing myself from the girl who was my best friend. And then what happened next was the real reason I cut her off, and it was really bad.
Story time about how I was stalked by what I honestly believe was a serial killer. In 2020, this guy moved into my apartment complex down the hall from me. My first encounter with this guy was in the hallways on his move-in day. He looked at me, and the first thing he ever said to me was, "Are you scared of me?" I thought that seemed a little strange, but then I realized that he was moving in to my guy best friend's apartment. So I texted my guy best friend and I was like, "Yo, your new roommate seems a little bit weird. Be careful." The following days, I keep finding this man everywhere I'm going. He was in the elevator with me. We got out of the elevator at the same time. I doubled back to make sure no one was following me. And he, at the exact same time, peeked out from behind the wall he was hiding behind. We made eye contact. And he laughed this evil demonic laugh, and he found out which apartment was mine. I was like, oh my gosh, like, what should I do? I did call the police, but the police wouldn't take me seriously. I go over to my guy best friend's apartment, and obviously the stalker and him are sharing the same apartment unit. While I'm hanging out with him and a bunch of other guy friends, the stalker dude starts pacing back and forth through the apartment with an axe on his shoulder and a helmet. Just pacing, not saying a word to anyone, just pacing back and forth with an axe. He then proceeds to block the door like this. This guy's 19 years old and he's ripped on steroids. This guy couldn't even walk normal because of his muscle mass. And he's standing, blocking the door so that no one could come in and no one could come out of the apartment unit. The guy eventually leaves the apartment, but he comes back. And when he comes back, he's extremely pissed off, goes into his room and is throwing things around. He comes out, and the dog who was living in the apartment starts growling. This dog loved people, but it could sense a very demonic energy. Look up at the stalker dude to see why the dog is growling. This guy had the most demonic glow to his eyes I have ever seen. I cannot describe it. All I knew is that I saw evil and darkness, and in that moment, I was terrified. All of my guy friends were actually playing video games, so they weren't really paying attention to what was going on. Once I got their attention, I told them that it's not safe here, we have to go. And they didn't know what I was talking about, but I told them I was leaving, and I got up and I left. Some of my guy friends followed me, though. When I got out of that apartment, I bawled my eyes out, and they were like, Cece, what happened? Like, why are you upset? Like, we were just hanging, like, I don't understand. So I told them exactly what I saw. So my guy friends that stayed back tried to talk to him and see why he was angry, and this is what the stalker boy said. He told them that he had a god complex and he had come to the earth to purify the unclean. I ran out of time, but part 2 is already posted. Don't watch this video without watching part 1. Anyway, so my guy friends are sitting down with him, and he tells him that he has a godlike complex and that he's come to cleanse the earth, okay? He also then proceeds to tell my guy friends that he thinks about chopping up people's body parts and stowing them away. He is saying the most demonic, out-of-pocket stuff with a dead serious face, like it's not a joke to him and he's not trying to be funny. It was at this moment that my guy friends were a little bit concerned and they started to take me serious on what I was saying. I didn't stay in my apartment for about 2 weeks, and I contacted the office the next morning and told them all the information about him pacing back and forth with an axe and about him telling us he's thinking about chopping up people's body parts and stowing them away. I told that to the office and they were like, well, he hasn't done anything yet, so we don't take it seriously. One day while I was over at the apartment complex gathering my clothes to go spend the night somewhere else, he shows up at my door pounding on my door. Luckily, my guy friends were over. I ran into my bedroom and I said, it's him. And they were like, how do you know? And I was like, I can feel it. And guess what? It was him. And I called the police and the police told him to stop harassing me and leave him alone. But the police, once again, were not taking me seriously. This was the second time I had contacted them about how I'm being threatened for my safety. And they didn't care. They didn't care. They didn't take it seriously. Even though the apartment complex said they had videos of him walking the halls with his axe, they still wouldn't take me seriously. And neither would the police. Until Stalker Boy stalked 2 girls home from the bar one night. And then he chased them down the halls of the apartment complex with a knife. The police were called, they swarmed the building, eventually caught him, and he went to jail for 24 hours. And then was released and got kicked out of the apartment complex, and I never saw him again. But the only thing he left behind was his axe and his helmet, which is really creepy. But yeah, that's the story.
Get ready with me while I tell you guys a story time of when my mom caught me talking to my current husband. So Malik and I started talking and we had only been talking for like 6.5 days at this point. I told him right off the bat, I was like, I have strict older brothers, so like we can meet once, you know, just to see if the vibes are vibing in person. And that's it. Like after that, we're just gonna be like texting until everyone in my family knows. So Malik was so cool with that. And he was like, we should go out for coffee. I was like, sure, we can go out for coffee. And so I had told my mom, I was like, I'm going to my friend's house. I obviously didn't go to my friend's house. I went to meet up with Malik. We were literally supposed to just meet for like an hour. But you guys, the vibes were vibing. We hit it off and we talked for like hours. And I didn't realize what time it was. It was like 9:30. And I was like, crap, I need to go back home before my mom, you know, catches on. She got on. By the way, you guys, I literally had told Malik, I was like, I'm going to be like telling my mom about you like when I get home and whatnot. And he had already told his mom and dad at this point. I got a call from my mom and she was like, where are you? I was like, I'm at my friend's house. She goes, okay, come out. I was like, what do you mean? She goes, come out, I'm outside. I'm like, no, you're not. She goes, yes, I am. I was like, I can't, I'm in the bathroom. She goes, okay, I'll wait for you. So I didn't believe my mom. I don't know why I didn't believe my mom. So I text my friend. I'm like, hey, like, is my mom outside your house right now? She goes and looks outside and she's like, yep, she's outside and she's waiting for you. I was like, crap. So I texted my mom. I was like, fine, I'm not at my friend's house. Like, I'll meet you at my aunt's house. My aunt lived like down the street. So whatever, like Malik is like rushing me home to my mom and already off to an awful start. But I wasn't even like nervous or anything because I knew I wanted to tell her anyways when I got home. Like that was my plan. So Malik drops me off, walk over to my mom's car, and I get in and I'm so nervous, but I'm also kind of excited to just tell her. And she just bursted out laughing. I was like, okay, like, are you not like mad at me? And she's just laughing at me and I'm like, why are you laughing? And I started getting annoyed because it's like, why are you laughing at me? Like, I'm stressed right now. She was like, you're literally so bad at lying. I was like, what do you mean? She goes, since when do you go to your friend's house dressed up? I was like, okay, you got me there. I got in the car and I just started telling her everything. I was like, she was like, how long have you known him for? I was like, 6 days. She's like, oh, and you like him? I was like, yeah. You guys, it was so hard. Like, I was trying to convince my mom, like, mother, this is like love at first sight. And she was like, you're crazy. Which everyone thought I was crazy. Like, I don't blame her. She was literally fangirling over Malik. She had so much respect for him because he wanted me to tell my mom, like right away. Like, he didn't want me to hide anything from her. It's just so funny to me because we're always so like scared and nervous to tell our families about like a significant other, but it always ends up being like so much easier than you think. Long story short, guys, if you think you're doing a good job at hiding your relationship from your mother, you're probably not. She probably already knows. But yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, our story is just quick, but that is all. I'll see you guys next time.
Rules my strict parents had in high school. I was not allowed to go on any school trips at all for the entirety of high school. I also was not allowed to go to any school dances, and yes, that does include prom. I did not go to my prom. I was also not allowed to leave the school for lunch when everybody went out for lunch. I also was not allowed to just go out with friends after school. The only socializing I had with any friends was if they were family friends, and it was a family friend gathering where my parents were there. I also was not allowed to watch anything that was above PG-13. This one time I went to the movies and my mom found out the movie I was watching and she literally got me to leave the movie theater. She removed me. She was like, you need to leave that movie theater right now. Comment below for a part 3. This is the finished look.